Did you know that studies estimate that a person's IQ can drop up to 15 points when they're under threat? And that is a sad truth because it means that we all become a little bit more stupid when we are overtaken by fear. What's up guys, it's your boy Coded99 and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back. I've been doing this, I've been doing book reviews. If you're new to this channel, you're welcome. What I do is simple. I upload videos about personal development. I invite people and I have real talks with them, and sometimes I upload fun content as well. So if you want to see any of this, check out my channel. If you like what you see, please do not hesitate to subscribe. So today we are reviewing this book titled Fearless by Dr. Pippa Grange. I hope you can see it. The subnote is How to Win at Life Without Losing Yourself, Dr. Pippa Grange. It's a nice book. Well, reading this book, I was more fixated at how to win at life without losing yourself, because obviously that's the big part of the book. But this book is more about fear, understanding fear and all of that. Then it clicked in my mind that, oh, the title is actually Fearless, and this is just a subnote. So it's more about how fear affects our winning at life, which is quite interesting. I liked what I saw, but anyways, I'll give more detailed review about my opinion about the book. So let's just dive into the review. So a little bit about the author. Her name is Dr. Pippa Grange. She's a performance psychologist who has helped people balance work and play and how to be happier generally with their career and all of that. And she was once a football team coach, which is interesting, you know, as a psychologist. And I think that gave her some experiences. This book is more about what she has learned over time and how she has seen the consistent pattern of how fear affects people. She had some conclusions and perspective about fear. Thankfully, she made it based on her experience. That based on her experience, she thinks that everyone is driven by fear. Don't be spooked yet. I'm going to explain more later. Maybe when you get the context, then you understand where she is coming from. So starting the book, she said that there are two types of fear. One is the one you can't miss, the one where you're panicking, you're afraid, you know, you're shaking and all of that. That is obvious. You cannot miss that. But there's this other type of fear that could be lurking inside of you. It could be fear of not being accepted. It could be fear of not being good enough. You know, these little fears that are just inside that even you can't be smiling and nobody would notice that you have that kind of fear. So that's what she's trying to emphasize on. And she says that these kind of fears are what lead to some behavioral changes or behavioral patterns like jealousy, perfectionism, isolating ourselves or feeling smaller than we actually are. The book is divided into different parts, and part one of the book is titled Fear Isn't Just in Your Head and That You're Not Alone. The author points out that fear comes from everywhere. Firstly, it can come from our mind, our thoughts and all of that. But majority of the fear that is experienced are influenced by outside factors. For example, the culture, your environment. So she explained in the sense of, as humans, we are constantly trying to improve ourselves, constantly trying to be better than we were yesterday, constantly trying to be better than average of what we were and all of that. She sees this as a constant battle, and she says that us thinking that life is a constant battle is not totally our fault. It's because it has been drilled into our mind from a tender age. You know, an example is growing up when you hear comments like your sister is more clever, you're not good enough for the football team, you're not good enough for the swimming team and all of that. These things create a sense of comparison and competition. That's when we start comparing ourselves to our siblings or friends and all of that. I was almost thinking she was trying to demean the place of competition. In my opinion, I think competition is good, but healthy competition. So I get her point, and I think she was trying to emphasize on the unhealthy competition or unhealthy pattern of competition and comparison that has been drilled into us growing up, affected by culture, experiences and all of that. A point in all of this is that we need to reconfigure our world to a much more kinder and accepting place rather than a battlefield. And relating the fear to winning, she says there are two types of winning. There is winning shallow and there is winning deep. Winning shallow, in our opinion, is you getting what you wanted, but you're still feeling unfulfilled and unsatisfied and you still want more. While winning deep is you getting what you wanted and having real fulfillment about it. So summarizing what she said about these two types of winning, Winning shallow is sort of unhealthy, and it carries the ideology that what we have is more important than who we are. This then leads to comparison. We start comparing the kind of car we drive with others, the level of intelligence of your kids with as compared to other people's children, your job title as compared to another person's job title, which kind of makes sense because you see that all these things are all wants, and human wants are insatiable. So in that sense, you keep on wanting more, and you would never really get to the point where you feel fulfilled because you're motivated by something else, not on who, but on what you are. Another way of winning shallow that she explained is we being of the mindset that when the other person wins, then we automatically become a loser. So we then try to start racing and trying to prove ourselves that we're not a loser. And looking at it now, it's just so stressful. Thinking about it right now, it's actually stressful. But these are things we sort of do unconsciously. But if we look at it from a different perspective, which is like winning deep, looking at it from that perspective, success has nothing to do with your worth as a person, but it has everything to do with the joy of getting to know yourself as a human being. I also add that it is getting to know yourself and grow and enjoying the process of growth for yourself as a human being. So basically, giving success your definition rather than working by someone else's definition will make you win deep. This takes me to the next part of the book that talks about the myth of success. The first myth is that losing makes you a loser. I would say this part is the most popular part because you must have heard severally that for you to win, for you to become successful, you have to fail a lot of times. You don't just get it right at once. It comes from you taking risks, failing severally, learning from your failures before you actually get to the point where you want to be. That is how we all learn. It pretty much applies to everything in life. Another myth is that fear is the best motivator. I agree that in some situations, yes, fear is the best motivator. For example, if you are being chased by a dog, you are running for your life. You're not thinking of anything else. You are in both at that moment. But when you apply that logic to everything else in life, it would seem like you are constantly being afraid of something, even something that you may not even know. And it's making you race for everything. And that is not a peaceful or healthy way to live. In the author's argument, she was like, we really don't need to be constantly scared for us to succeed. Because actually in real life, constant fear is quite distracting and draining, and something that drains you cannot really be a motivator in that sense. And if you're constantly living like that, it will just lead to more fear. It was actually interesting to know that the popular idea of survival of the fittest is based on a wrong assumption. It was never about the competition of individuals or institutions. It was a term coined by a philosopher and economist named Herbert Spencer in 1864. He made a conclusion after reading Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection. What he said was that the form of species that would survive into future generations is the one that makes the most reproductive copies of itself. So being the fittest was about effective breeding, not the strength and the ability to beat others and sit on top of the food chain. And when Darwin would further explain his idea, he said, survival is not just about being the best at breeding, but also adapting to the local environment. And adaptation comes from cooperation, collaboration, becoming resilient to changes, and making the most of opportunities and not just dominating. So in that sense, survival of the fittest was never about dominating, but more about breeding and adaptation. Taking a cue from this, you can see that it is not power or dominance that would give you the key to your potential, but these qualities, cooperation, collaboration, resilience, taking the best use of opportunities, these are the qualities that would actually drive you up to your potential. The fourth myth is that feelings are for failures. Well, this just states that logic is the best way to run your life. Emotions are inferior and must be suppressed or contained. Don't fall for it. As much as we benefit from using logic over emotions sometimes, suppressing our emotions goes against how we work as humans. right? So there has to be a balance. Don't just go with logic over emotions all the time. At least that's the lesson I learned from this part. So I'd like to know which of the success myths you relate with or have once experienced. I can relate so much with number 4. Please drop in the comment section so we can relate there. And if you've watched up to this point and you're enjoying and learning something new in this video and from this book, please, if you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with a friend or whoever you think may need it. Okay, I would really appreciate your support. Part 2 of the book expands how we should be prepared to be scared. It covers how our brain is somewhat configured to process negative emotions super fast. Negative emotions like fear. The brain processes them super fast but processes other things just a little bit slower. So the fear center of our brain, the amygdala, can easily make a switch into survival mode. And this can eat into our subconscious and make us more instinctively driven than we might like to think, because fear affects our feelings, our thoughts and behaviors in dramatic ways. And this was where she made the point that studies have estimated that a person's IQ can drop up to 15 points when they are under threat. And what this means is that we all become a little bit more stupid when we are overtaken by fear. I'm almost sure you've experienced this in different scenarios in your life. If you care to share, please share in the comment section. I'm really interested. At this point or at this time, we can easily make short-term decisions without considering any risk at all and go based on the emotion we're feeling at that point. And most times we end up regretting the decisions we make at those points. With all this in mind, she concluded that there are 4 responses to fear, and they are fight, flight, freeze, or appease. I won't be going into this now. I think if you want more details, you can get the book. I think this kind of information will be available online as well, so you can read more about it online if you're not ready to read the book. The main point of this is that each one of us may be more inclined to one of these 4 responses than the other. We all have our personal patterns on this. On the solution side of things, she said we can take charge of our fear by changing our response to it and how we think about it, what we tell ourselves when these situations or emotions come, and what story we tell ourselves, and how to shift your mental attention to a particular focus during these times or when you're experiencing such emotions. So these I'll be touching briefly. She provided some fear management technique, and she clarified that the more you practice, the more it would enable you to think before you act and choose to act wisely rather than letting the fear take over you. The first management technique she shared is for you to process it, processing the fear at the moment it comes. And for you to be able to process it, we need to sort of engage in some routine, a routine that is specific, or should I say peculiar to you, that you resonate well with. It could be a breathing routine, it could be affirmations or visualization, or a relaxation routine, something that helps you calm down. But whatever routine you choose, the key is to act immediately. Don't waste time. Whenever it comes, just act immediately. And she gave an example that the breathing routine helps to calm your body down, and in turn sort of has an effect on calming your mind down at that point. Fear doesn't like the dopamine or the ease that come with the breathing routine. So it's more like the more your body is at ease and calm, the lesser chance of you being dragged into a mental chaos. So it's more like you can't clench your fist and shake at the same time. So in summary, it's hard to be overtaken by fear when you are actively reducing or releasing the tension. Another technique is distraction. Distraction helps a lot. You can play music, play game, whatever it is that you resonate with, just do it. She gave an example that in a football team, even before they start the game, that you see them gisting about the YouTube video they watched or whatnot, and they throw bands here and there. And that helps them not focus on the tension of the game that they're about to play, but they are easing the tension. And although distraction is temporary, but it produces results, it works, so why not? Another technique is rationalizing it, like using logic to overcome fear. Like I said earlier, sometimes it is a good technique, but there should be balance. So she clarified as well in this part that sometimes it helps. For example, if you're called that one of your loved ones is sick or something, and you're not there, or you travel to another city or something like that, the logic you can use instead of panicking, the logic is that, okay, can you take the person to a hospital? Is there a hospital around? If they're already taken to the hospital, then you are more calm knowing that they're in the hospital, they are being taken care of by a doctor or nurse, rather than you keep on panicking. I mean, the panic just reduces knowing that, okay, they are here. You try to tell your brain, although sometimes the brain doesn't want to listen. I get that, but sometimes it helps. That's why I'm saying, like, choose whatever works for you. It could be distraction, it could be breathing technique, it could be using logic. Another example is when you go bungee jumping. You know that there are safety measures, and when you go for a roller coaster ride and all of that, you know that there are safety measures. You know that they watch these things. The engineers make sure that these things are well placed to reduce the risk of loss of life. So when you go, of course you're afraid, but you know that you're safe. So that still helps you take the risk of hopping on that roller coaster or going bungee jumping. But hey, I've seen some scary videos about bungee jumping, so be very careful. Okay, I beg you, please be careful. But yeah, I hope you get the point. There are other fear management techniques discussed in this book. I would advise you get the full gist in it. I can't really cover everything in this video, so please bear with me. Another valuable thing I think she shared in this book is how to replace all these underlying fears that I mentioned earlier. And she gave like 7 ways, but I'm going to cover for the sake of time and the fact that I think they are more important. The first is to replace fear with a different story. She posed the question here to ask the reader, what story do you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself, I'm the black sheep, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and all of that? The logic there is that everything that we've come to know is a story, an idea that we've come to accept. And it's only going to change until you find a better story or a better idea to replace it. Yo, bro, we need to change the story of our lives. We can't keep living like this. Yeah, you're right. Yes, I'm serious. Another thing she shared is to replace fear with a sense of purpose. One way of describing purpose is that it's your contribution to the world beyond you. It's like your central motivation, what drives you, what pushes you, what makes you focus on certain things, what pushes your interests towards certain things. And this influences your decision and creates a meaning for you. If your personal goals are about you and your achievements, then your purpose is what you can offer beyond yourself. And bear in mind, your purpose does not have to be grand or dramatic or world stage. No, it could be as simple as anything. The third one I'll be sharing is to replace fear with surrender. She described it like this, that when we're scared, it's possible for us to start feeling small or insignificant. Then we start craving support from ourselves or from someone, and we sort of want to be held. Somehow we sort of want the burden lifted off our shoulders, even if it's just for a moment. She termed this useful surrender. Anyways, it basically means like letting go and trusting something bigger than you. She said it could be God. So surrendering or letting go can help you recognize that there are forces at work in your life that are greater than you. Also to realize that everything that happens to you is not because you made it happen. Sometimes it is beyond your control. And I really loved the balance she put here. I really loved the fact that she said surrendering is not about you shrugging off accountability and not taking responsibilities for your actions. And I'm like, that is golden right there. So our point is that it's more about recognizing or being open to the possibility that you are not all that there is. And because of that, I would just like to chip this in, that the Bible also talks about fear, that we have not been given the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. If you're listening to this, God loves you, Jesus loves you, and He has plans for your life. He loves you and He wants to bless you, seal you with the Holy Spirit, secure eternity for you, and work in you and through you for others to also be blessed. So this is a reach out to you. If you'd like to hear more about God's intention for you, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or send me an email. My contacts are in the description, and I'll be able to share more with you. Lastly, she said, replace fear with laughter. this is like golden. It's like she was in my mind because I was expecting this particular one. This works so well with Nigerians. But before I go into that, she made some really good points. She was like, if fear contains negative energy and drags you down, laughter is the direct opposite. Although it is silly, it can be illogical sometimes and stupid sometimes, but it works even if it's temporary. It takes your focus away from the negative and to a more positive mood and positive feeling. In fact, she said some psychologists have not been able to still figure out how laughter is a very good coping mechanism when it comes to fear. And I'm like, you've not met Nigerians. So yeah, about that. Nigerians are so good at this that in fact we are going through some bad times or something bad just happened right now, and you see us laughing. I'll share an experience with you. So I was working for a company, and then that day I was going to work, and one of my colleagues called me, Nigerian. She was like, yo, the office is closing down. They are closing down the company. And I'm like, that has to be a joke. Are you kidding me? I got to the company and I saw people crying. I was like, yo, this is happening for real. I got to my Nigerian mate and I'm like, guys, this is really happening. Guess what? We started laughing. Like, Shane a film trick me or like, what did they happen for a year? They closed down this company to. Like, it was really funny. We laughed for some time and that helped us be in a better mood. Of course, it was temporary. Of course, maybe later at home, it dawned on me that, wait, I'm not going to have a job again, literally. But for that moment, it helped us handle it well. None of us cried. We were able to handle it well and even console others. Like, don't worry, it's going to be fine and all of that. Nigerians are super at this. Why do you think we have so many comedians? So yeah, it's a good coping mechanism and it's something you should try out. So rounding up, there are other techniques she shared, like replacing pain with passion, replacing fear with real connection, and replacing fear with dreams and desires. Well, that is all for this book review. I really hope you enjoyed and learned something new from this book. And I think it's a good book. I think it has some pretty good perspective, but I only have one reserve about the book, and it's that some points could have been easily passed without writing a lot about them. Aside that, I think it's a great book. And yeah, if you want to buy this book, you can check it out on Amazon or Book Depository or any other online store. I actually bought this book here in Estonia in a bookstore named Rava Ramat in Tallinn, Viru Keskus, for those staying in Estonia, so you can check it out there. Well, let me know in the comment section if there is any book you'd like me to review for you. I have two books in mind. One is Adulting for Jesus. I hope you can see it. And the second one is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So let me know which one you choose between these. Otherwise, if you have any other one in mind, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching this video. It's always fun discussing books with you guys, and please subscribe if you are not yet subscribed and you made it up to this point. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. I really love hearing from you guys, so please comment and share this video with whoever you think may need it. And until next time, make sure you keep yourself beautiful.